Dumelang, welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Clement Manyatela. Great to have you with us here on SABC News. On the show tonight, Brent Bozell, that's the man that is awaiting to present his credentials to President Cyril Ramaphosa before he can officially take up his post as the U.S. ambassador to South Africa. He has now arrived in South Africa as more calls are being made for the president not to recognize his credentials. He's a known Israeli supporter who wants to convince South Africa to drop the genocide case against Israel and also get our government to move away from aligning with countries like Iran, Russia, and China. So, will the president accept his credentials? And should he not, which is very unlikely, what could be the consequences for South Africa? The former South African ambassador to the US, who was chased out and declared persona non grata by the US, Ebrahim Rasool, joins us tonight. Also on the show, Advocate Kemi Behari has been officially suspended as the head of legal in Ekurhuleni. This follows his testimony at the Madlanga Commission, where he made a number of concessions regarding how he dealt with that IPID report that suggested that action be taken against Julius Mkhwanazi. Advocate Behari joins us tonight. But first, my comment. The SONA debate has just concluded not so long ago in Parliament. Political parties have been reacting to President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address. The DA leader, John Steenhuisen, spoke on the country's economic growth, saying the presence of the DA within the GNU has made an impact.
Our economy is growing again. 4 consecutive quarters of positive GDP growth, a feat that seemed unimaginable not so long ago. Inflation is at its lowest level in 20 years. 2 consecutive budgets of surpluses. Stabilization of our national debt. Interest rates are easing. Borrowing costs are declining. The rand has strengthened. And as we heard today, Mr. President, unemployment is the lowest that it has been in 5 years. These are important signals, not intentions, Honourable Van Rooyen, that work under this 7th administration, a coalition government, and the first not under single-party rule, is making a positive impact, and the world is taking notice. South Africa is today a better place than it was on the eve of the 2024 election. I'm proud that the DA's presence in government has been a force for good, injecting competence, fiscal discipline, and pro-growth policies into a system that was long weighed down by mismanagement and cadre deployment.
EFF leader Julius Malema spoke about the president's failure to act against corruption in his cabinet.
Mr. President, your Phala scandal has rendered you ineffective in dealing with corruption and incompetence in your party and in your cabinet. When Dr. Zweli Mkhize was found to be involved in digital vibe scandal, you did not have the courage to remove him. He resigned. Today, Zweli Mkhize is the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. When Honorable David Mahlobo was identified as being a key part of the corruption in the State Security Agency by the Zondo Commission, you did not remove him. Instead, he's the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation. When Senzo Mthunu was exposed last year for having formed part of the infiltration of the South African Police Service and disbanding of the political killing team, PKTT, on New Year's Eve, you did not remove him. You have retained Senzo Mthunu at the taxpayer's expense and called him your political burden to bear. Today, the people of this country do not have water. Instead of consequence management against Honorable Phemni Majudina, who does not have a clue what she's doing, you create another task team for water which is chaired by you because you do not have the courage to remove her. If you have the courage to remove her now.
The MK party's Des van Rooyen says this year's SONA was a state of intent address, adding that the country can't work on intentions.
The MK party says it was not a State of the Nation address. It was a state of intent address. It described plans, committees, trust teams, another investment summit, and what government hopes to do. It failed to report and account to the nation about the performance of the disunited so-called GNU. And a nation in crisis, Honorable House Chairperson, cannot be governed by intention. In 2018, the President kickstarted his tenure with Tumamina slogan and went on to introduce South Africans to an imaginary story of Tintswalo. Under this slogan and story, we have yet only promises. Economy will grow, infrastructure will be accelerated, crime will be defeated, corruption will be uprooted, jobs will be created, municipalities will be reimagined. But the lived experience of our people tells a different story.
The PA leader, Gayton McKenzie, saying the president's praises, applauding him for listening to his coalition partners.
The people that vote for the PA have sent me here to say thank you to you for listening when we said illegal foreigners are a problem. You, Mr. President, are an example to all our mayors across the country, to all the mayors of the different political parties, that you listen to your coalition partners. You are a president that is consultative and you're listening. That's why today we have 10,000 labor inspectors that's going to go around the country. That's why today any businessman hiring an illegal foreigner shall meet with the arm of the law. Most importantly, Mr. President, and very emotionally for our people, thank you for listening to our cries when we said, bring the army to our areas. Thank you, Mr. President.
And Action SA's Athol Trollip said the president shouldn't fictionalize his legacy.
Even the MPA officials have refused lifestyle audits, and it's clear as to why they do that if you watch the Matlanga Commission and ad hoc committee on our TV screens daily. No, Mr. President, you cannot fictionalize your legacy. It isn't shaped by spin but by facts. You are right about your government and your bloated cabinet of ministers promoted above the Peter Principle, lurching from one crisis to another. Local government is a mess, and your stopgap intervention in Johannesburg before the G20 summit was like putting a plaster on a septic wound. The pus is oozing out again, and there's no water in the taps, despite the Vaal River system overflowing. This is a reflection of what your government has come to represent. Your MEC for Health says sleeping on a hospital floor is a preference. The Gauteng Premier, Antoinette Lusufi, says he too is inconvenienced by having to shower at hotels. This reflects a callous disdain for lived reality of South Africans.
The question we are asking you tonight is, what purpose do you think the SONA debate serves in Parliament? You can send us a WhatsApp voice note to reflect on what the members of Parliament have said. What do you make of the quality of the arguments that have been presented tonight? Did the President's commitments receive proper scrutiny? Right, let's start here now. The Trump administration's pick for ambassador to South Africa, Leo Brent Bozell, has arrived in the country. Bozell is expected to present his credentials to President Cyril Ramaphosa before officially taking up his post. This is as relations between South Africa and the United States continue to be under strain, with Trump accusing South Africa of persecuting its white minority, criticizing its ties with Russia and China, and imposing steep tariffs on its exports. Let's bring in now the former South African ambassador to the United States, Ebrahim Rasool, who was in fact expelled last year, joins us now via Zoom. Mr. Rasool, thank you so much for making time for us. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
So Brent Bozell has arrived and is now only waiting to present his credentials to DERCO, the president as well. Just help us understand first what the process is. What actually gets considered by a host country when credentials are being presented for an ambassador?
So, Clement, it's very important to understand that he would not have been confirmed in the US and then got on a plane to come to South Africa had there not been a matter that we call an agreement. So there is an in-principle acceptance by South Africa that has allowed him to be sworn in the US and then to fly out to South Africa. And what we are going through now is the issue of credentialing. I think that there can be a gap between the two. I think that there was an expected one when I was given agreement by the Biden administration, and there was the expectation that I would be credentialed by the Trump administration, but then the Biden administration credentialed me in the week before Trump became president. So you can have a disruption between that process, but it is unlikely to be the case if it's the same administration or the same government or the same president. So I think he is probably set for credentialing.
Yeah. So based on what we know about this man, could that be enough to raise some red flags to our government? And I understand what you're saying about that agreement. And I'm just referring now here to what he has said, for instance, to the Senate committee that confirmed him in Congress. He said that he has a very clear agenda here in South Africa. One, that is to convince the South African government to withdraw its genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice, and two, to get South Africa to move away from having undesirable, quote-unquote, friends such as Iran, Russia, and China. So can an ambassador engage with the host government, around its foreign policy and its decisions on who to align with? Because, he could argue that those discussions are important in the context of protecting American interests, which is his responsibility.
I think when an ambassador sets out to come and change the foreign policy of the host country, when he sets out to come here to change the mind of that government about a case like the ICJ case, when he has labeled black economic empowerment as racist, when he makes clear distinction that he's here to respect the people of South Africa, but doesn't say the same thing about the government, and historically he has regarded the ruling or the ANC component of the GNU as terrorists, then I think that those are egregious, and that is infinitely more direct and an affront than anything, for example, that I had been able to say in evoking a persona non grata declaration. And so he should have been, on that basis, a non-starter. But these are sensitive times. I think South Africa is fighting particularly for AGOA. I think the president is probably, on the one hand, seeing this as a further appeasement of the Trump administration and not ready for a confrontation on this issue. Yeah. I would have approached the matter differently, but I think this is what I think the calculations are that's gone into the president's head in giving agreement.
How would you have approached the matter? When you say differently, how do you mean?
If I were the president, and I'm not, and it's his prerogative, I would have said to President Trump when the nomination came and the request for agreement came, I would have said, I will credential your ambassador if you credential my nomination for ambassador, and then put forward a name and then put the ball in the court of the USA to decide whether they are so keen to get Lee Bozell into South Africa, and at the same time to then say to them, let's do this as an exchange. Let's play chess with this matter as opposed to falling over on it. So I would have bargained for our ambassador to be accepted and not to be stonewalled.
Yeah, but it's the Trump administration that you can bargain with. I doubt it. But do you think that there's a space here for our government to speak to Bozell about some of the things that he has said and to make him understand that those are not necessarily what should be the intentions of an ambassador, because there are now more and more growing calls for the president not to recognize his credentials, which, as you've indicated, is quite unlikely. But what do you think would be the consequences of that? Because is it even possible to bargain with the Trump administration?
When the president took his whole delegation, including 3 white men, 2 golfers, and a billionaire, into the White House, we couldn't convince Bozell's boss that there's no genocide, no land confiscation, etc., that we are not racist, and that there's no need for white people to become refugees in the USA. If we couldn't persuade the boss, how will we be able to persuade the messenger? I think that is the critical thing. Secondly, I can understand that the one issue that President Trump still has over South Africa is whether he will confirm our participation in the African Growth and Opportunities Act, or AGOA.
Yeah.
It's gone through Congress, it's gone through Senate, it's now on the desk. But for me, the major point that we had been making, and that I think has gotten it through those steps already, is the fact that while unfortunately and sadly thousands of black workers will suffer, and it's a point that I've always made, but the main financial victims of stopping AGOA from South Africa will be white mine owners, white land owners of the farms, and white factory owners who export to the US. That is going to be the most powerful way in which, if we have to persuade Donald Trump to let South Africa stay in AGOA, that is the powerful argument. It's not about appeasing through an ambassador. It is about playing his game and saying, if you're so concerned about whites, you will be punishing particularly the white landowners, mine owners, and factory owners through this.
So, and of course, now everybody will be looking at how this new ambassador will be behaving in this host country. And it's tricky because you can't also dictate to America who they must send. But I'm interested to know what actually governs an ambassador's conduct here. Because my understanding is we have to look at the Vienna Convention. But what exactly are the expectations of that convention when it comes to ambassadors?
United States ambassadors globally are a breed on their own. They believe that they represent a superpower who has the ability to punish economically, even militarily, that they believe that in many countries, particularly in the Middle East, no government makes a decision without consulting the US ambassador. That's the power that they have that other ambassadors ordinarily do not have. And so I think the one thing that President Ramaphosa has done that he may hope would rein in Lee Bozell when he hits the ground is the fact that he fired a warning shot through the expulsion of the charge d'affaires of Israel, and to declare him persona non grata, and therefore he may think that a warning has been given, step out of line, and the same could happen to you. Whether it will be as easy with the US ambassador is another matter altogether, but the hope is that that could bracket Lee Bozell in the way in which he conducts himself. The question is, if there's the first infraction, if he becomes the kind of lightning rod for a revival of white supremacism in South Africa, and the president blinks and does not expel him, then I think we will be fair game.
Former U.S. ambassador, South African ambassador to the U.S., Ebrahim Rasool, thank you for joining us this evening. After the break, we'll have a conversation with Advocate Kemi Behari. Stay with us here on Face the Nation. Welcome back. Ekurhuleni Mayor Nkosini Xhakaza has confirmed the full suspension of senior officials, Advocate Kemi Behari and Linda Xhasheka. The two have now been formally served with charge sheets, having been on suspension since December last year. Their suspension follows serious allegation emerging from the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry into criminal infiltration and corruption within the country's justice system. Advocate Kemi Behari is the suspended head of Department for Legal Services and Risk in the city of Ekurhuleni and joins us now in studio. Advocate Behari, thank you so much for speaking to us. Good evening.
Thank you very much, sir. Good evening.
You are now officially suspended by the Ekurhuleni Metro. Are you surprised at all by that action?
No, I'm not surprised. I was officially suspended on the 5th of December. So this is not an official suspension. It's a suspension that continues from the precautionary suspension. So what happens when the service of charges comes in, then it continues, suspension continues. So in terms of that's in terms of regulations. So the issue of now saying that I'm officially suspended, I don't know what it means, because the mayor cannot suspend any head of department officially or unofficially. That's dealt with by the city manager, and the new city manager did that on the 5th of December. I'm not surprised at this. I know that some of the issues you say I made concessions and so on at the commission, right? And I'll deal with that issues. But this is not something that's coming out of the blue. From 2023, when I got involved in matters, I gave my opinion and asked, why are we only focusing on one aspect? Why are we not covering the full value chain of all the issues, including the state of the city address and the huge dangerous situations of CAT VIP being involved in that situation? Are
you saying you've raised that issue before as the head of legal?
Yes, I've raised it.
Who did you raise it with?
In terms, when the report first came to me in about May 2023, when the investigator came to me, I raised that issue. I also raised the matter with the chief of police, Mapia. And this was on the meeting we had again on the 21st of June. So, and I briefed the city manager as well to say these are the critical areas I'm looking at.
So you could see with the CAT VIP that something is wrong here?
No, certainly. Because if you say to me the incidents with the transfer or donations and so on, that is incorrect from the totally. I mean, I don't agree with the way that the donations were done and other involvements, including the MOU. But I'm saying, look at the full value chain. The issue is CAT VIP company were involved from 2019 at the city. Went into the State of the City address, which was in March, 30th of March 2022. Apparently, the mayor at the time, Alderman Campbell, was briefed on that State of the City address. The chief of police knew or recognized that there were persons or who should not have been there on the 30th of March.
Yeah.
Apparently he raises it with the next day. But from then, nothing happens. And
so here's where my confusion is. If you already could see that there's something wrong here, and then Julius Mkhonasi gets suspended about the very same thing that you thought something is wrong here, why then is he seemingly still protected? And I'll take you back to the letter that you had drafted in response to IPID, which disputed its findings of fraud and corruption against Mkhonasi. And you had told the commission that, oh, this was an internal letter. I think by concession, I meant that you ended up conceding to the commission that, in fact, that's a letter that you sent to the MMC to put on a letterhead and sent to IPID. So that's what I meant by concession.
Okay.
So why would then this be the case if you had already seen that there's something fishy here? Because what you could have done is extend his suspension and investigate further, because to your point, you could see that there's something wrong with how CAT VIP was involved.
All right. So the investigation and suspension happened around February 2023. It comes to me around May, just before, a few days before the suspension was due to lapse. Now, to grant or support, I don't grant the suspension. That goes to, extension goes to the HOD. But from a compliance perspective, they approached me to say, can I support the extension of the suspension?
Yeah.
For me to export or to extend and support something of that, you must have legal reasons. Otherwise, you'll continuously have situations where, for convenience, then you are suspending an official depending on whether you like it or not. So those have happened in the past.
Or you could run the risk of having someone return to work and more damage is being done. So the safest way to do it would be to say, because we still need more additional documentation and evidence, let's extend this suspension, because what you're doing is investigations are going to continue. That's only fair, so that you play it safe, because not addressing that query that was sent to you around whether or not to extend the suspension didn't indicate to this head of internal affairs that the suspension must be extended, which, like I say, that's running the risk of bringing in someone who can come and just interfere with investigations or even do more damage.
There was no reason why they could not have, or when I spoke to the crafter or the author of that investigation, there was no reason why they couldn't have proceeded with a disciplinary. If it was such an extent that, because when I asked them, the questions you posed was, have you finished with your investigations? What is still outstanding? Because I do look at the problem is coming from the state of the city.
Yeah.
Are you going to get statements from Mr. Rivo's Peace, Chief of Police?
So you told them those are the outstanding statements?
They're the outstanding statements.
Meaning what? The investigation is not complete?
Well, when he told me that the investigations were complete and they were going to proceed, now I just needed to extend the suspension, he was not giving me any other reasons why. So I asked him, are you going to do this to get the other statements? He never answered to me.
But what I'm saying is, when he says to you that the investigation is complete, then you say, but these are the outstanding matters.
Yes.
What that effectively means is that the investigation is not complete. You are the head of legal.
Yes.
You are the one being asked for advice. When you say these are the outstanding documents, you're essentially saying the suspension is not complete. So why can't you clearly explain to them and say, extend that suspension, or this is what I would suggest that we support, so that you go and get these additional documentations?
So during our meeting, so I said to him, these are things I still see why this entire process will be risked. Right?
Yeah.
And come back to me and tell me what you want to do. But they never came back to me. Now, as the head of legal, as I said, my role was to look at the extension of the suspension. I picked up on all those issues. You have to have credible reasons why you want to extend it. Now, from my side, they had told me from their side they had completed the investigation. They were proceeding with the matter. As at 23rd of March, the Chief of Police had written to the Mr. Gneza, divisional head, and on the 12th of April, they were then discussing the issue of furthering the appointments. It actually came to mind that there were some issues why they didn't deal with the matter, because Gneza says that there was an agreement or discussion between EMPD and IPID that they're not to proceed because they're going to be imminent arrest. So at the
And
stage,
what did you do about that information?
I only became aware of it during the commission when I looked at the record.
But
So
did you not
that
at
was
some
not
point
disclosed.
as the head of legal ask, what's going on? I see this man is back at work.
No, I didn't see him at work. I wasn't involved in that process.
It was in the news.
It came in after that when apparently he was brought back by the Chief of Police. That is.
But what did you do once you see in the news or you hear that he's back? What did you do about it?
But there's lawful processes to follow. If he's back at work, why couldn't the disciplinary still start?
Yeah, but you could have also still said, can I get an update? The last time you asked me what should be the position towards this matter, and I asked you about these additional documentations that were required. Yeah. Why are you not going back to them and say, I see this guy is back. Where is this matter at? Have you got all these additional documentations? And I'm asking this because in the beginning, you started this conversation by saying you could see from the word go that CAT VIP was quite wild in its operations, and you saw something is wrong there. Yeah. As the head of legal, how do you not go back and ask for an update so that you protect the city?
Because after I've given those issues to look at, why don't we look at these aspects? You want to cover the issue so that it's not about Julius Makunazi being going through the process of suspension. It's about, for me, at the end of the day, from a compliance, are we looking at the main issue of a possibility of a successful outcome? And these are the lacking issues. So I did not go back because once I handed over, I'm handed over to that internal audit. He reports to a Section 56 with the Chief of Police. They address those matters and then they come back in terms of
Okay, so here's the reality, Advocate Bihari. The way you and other officials have handled matters has actually benefited Julius Mkhwanazi. That's a reality, because had you been expressly clear and said, there is something questionable about this CAT VIP, let's extend this person's suspension, let's implement IPID's report, we probably wouldn't be sitting here. So the question I want to ask is, are you satisfied then with how you have approached matters and how you've dealt with this issue?
I'm satisfied. I'll tell you why. It's because if it had gone into a disciplinary, at least now you still had the issue of finalizing. If it had gone to a disciplinary, Now, when Nisa says that they had been in contact with IPID had told them no, there's imminent arrest and so on. So if the imminent arrest came through, that would have been, even at the IPID time, when the IPID brought their report, they also spoke about then the DPP being involved. So my issue is, why must we only rely on just the disciplinary when you can cover all round? And the disciplinary for me was to say, there must be an outcome that doesn't risk, because of the other evidence there, it mustn't be an outcome that risks the possibility of not getting...
So you have no regrets about how you've handled this matter,
no,
in hindsight?
I know, I don't have a regret in terms of following the procedure. They now, from what we, yes, in hindsight, now that we know what is happening, that was never at that stage any issue informed to me. This is what the ramifications are. I looked purely at the documents. I looked purely at the issue of donations, and I said, no, let's finalize it. Because we were standing in the city almost on a regular basis.
But you were not convinced that there was fraud and corruption there?
No, I wasn't convinced of fraud and corruption. I even took it and I addressed my colleague with the prosecutor on that to discuss what are the elements of fraud and corruption, how is it linked to the evidence in that respect. And then when I looked at it, who was benefiting in terms of fraud, who made the misrepresentation, how is the corruption linked?
Wasn't it clear that he made the misrepresentation?
It was an element responded to by in terms of the MOU.
He signed the MOU that he shouldn't have signed. He signed documents and approved things he didn't have the authority to approve. Isn't that fraud?
He signed an MOU where he supported something and submitted it to the office of the
which was illegal, because he wasn't supposed to do that.
In terms of the support being in the part of the value chain, he supported it. He didn't approve anything. It went through from Jermaine Fortin to Mapie's PA. Mapie's PA had given it to him.
Yeah, but there are certain signatures that were not there. So he's supporting what exactly?
No. So he's supporting the content of that MOU, the way we understood it. The content of the MOU was being supported, and it was sent through to the value chain, to the ultimate persons to a point.
Have you seen how he's responded to these questions at the Madlanga Commission?
No.
Have you seen why Madlanga Commission is convinced that there was fraud here and it could have been picked up from the word go?
No. He reported, and I dealt with, in my response to Madlanga Commission when I was there, there was another document which there was a little adjournment, because the documents that we considered was in his warning statement, where he said that the vehicles were to be transferred to be used by EMPD. And now, but the issue, and we had with, I think it's Advocate Commissioner Baloy, was to say that no, they were looking at a different document which he had done, which is linked to the initial internal affairs report. So that is where we looked at all the evidence from that side.
How have you been affected by this? What's next for you?
For me?
Yeah, professionally, I mean, this takes you a couple of steps back. Something like this affects your reputation, especially as a lawyer.
No, it does, in terms of what has been going on. Seriously, I can't be so naive to say it hasn't affected me. But in terms of the legal ramifications, I'm there to deal with the issue at the disciplinary committee. I'm there to deal with the evidence and why we made a decision in terms of that. Because the city of Ekurhuleni is bleeding. In terms of losing of cases at bargaining council, at disciplinary, I'm there to have to look at overall the issue. So you have Julius Malema, I'm sorry, my apologies, Julius Mkonazi. You had him dealing with all of these issues. Are we then looking at just Julius Mkonazi, but why would we not look at the whole value chain?
Okay.
Even the MMC, the late MMC, Nguevu, in September, he also raised it. So you cannot look at isolated issues now, because it's important, because it's raised now at that level.
All right. Advocate Behari, I'm completely out of time, but I think we've got it. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you very
really appreciate it. And thanks to you for watching the Tuesday edition of Face the Nation. We'll be back with you on Thursday at 8 p.m. Have a good evening. Cheers.